Can you relay a little bit about how our intent can shift the composition of a plant chemically?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Plants seem to work a lot. They act as maintainers of the homeodynamics of ecosystems, and they're constantly monitoring everything that's going on in their eco range. And they begin to produce chemicals that they release into the ecosystem, either through their stomata or through the mycelial network. And those chemicals actually help maintain the functioning and health of everything in their eco range. And so if there's a plant on one side of the range that is ill, they'll actually make the chemicals that will go through the mycelial network and begin to help that particular plant. They'll do it for animals within their eco range, anything like that. So you see, natives would often say, indigenous people would say, oh, before the day before you go to collect the plants, tell the plant what you need it to do so that when you get there, the plant will be strong in its medicine. And it turns out that under the impact of a need, a plant will begin shifting its phytochemical production, and within 24 to 48 hours, it'll be that whatever it's shifting to will be at its peak. So one of the stories I like most is about chimpanzees, how they know over 100 different plants to use for healing themselves. And if they have, let's say, a certain kind of intestinal parasite, they will get up in the morning and they won't eat anything. They'll go off by themselves and wander through the forest until they find the exact plant that they need to heal themselves. And they'll sit down by it and hold a living leaf of the plant in their mouth and just sit there. And part of what happens is their body then is able to tell how strong that plant is for helping them. If it doesn't feel right, they'll go and do it to the next one until they found it. But the plant also can analyze the saliva of any animal that touches it like that, and it knows what it is and begins shifting its phytochemistry in response. Now that particular plant is a real amazing one. It's got kind of, the one I'm thinking of, on the surface of its leaf, it's kind of like Velcro. So the chimpanzee will pick it, fold it like an accordion, and then swallow it. And it will only work if taken in exactly this way. If you chews it up, it won't work, right? It swallows it, and it goes down, and in the stomach it begins to unfold, and the stomach acid leaches out all of the chemicals that are specific for the parasite. So then the sphincter opens, the contents from the stomach drop down, and that leached out chemical, it puts all of the parasites which were attached to the bowel wall into kind of a coma. Then as that leaf goes through, it unfolds, and it's got these sharp accordion folds plus the Velcro, and it literally scrapes off all of the parasites off of the bowel and out. It's the only way it'll work. And so people are amazed, like, oh, how can they do this? They're like fucking animals, they're so stupid. But this is this amazing capacity that all animals, all living things on this earth have to know about medicine. And so Jim Duke, who's an amazing guy, lives in Virginia, a real amazing guy, he does this, he talks about this, he says, well, I can kind of get that. He says, that makes sense. These plants and animals grew up together over thousands and thousands of years. And he said, the one that bothers me, though, is the plants that were taken to Africa after the New World was discovered. And they've been there only about 350, 400 years. And the baboons know exactly how to use them for medicine. He said, that's when my brain begins to shut down, because it basically says there's some mechanism of understanding that's active all the time, that animals have to understand the uses of plant medicines. And we apparently have it as well. And Jim Duke says, I got too many degrees. Now, my medicine teacher, he can do it, but I feel a little twitchy about it.
What organ are they using to perceive in that way? Obviously, they don't use their brains in the same way as us, in the sense that the chimpanzee or the baboon wasn't educated at a prestigious medical academy. So how is it that they're doing this, and how do we approach that kind of information? In other words, the people who are really going to watch this interview and go, wow, I want to be able to do that. How do they begin that process?
Well, one thing I want to say, this is kind of a pre-ramble. It's not even really related, but you're talking about chimpanzees getting a degree. Now, the interesting thing is the most adept chimpanzee that is known learned about 300 words of American Sign Language, okay? how many words of chimpanzee is the smartest anthropologist? Like 0. Okay, so I often wonder like who's the stupid person on the block, But basically, if you people, members of ancient and indigenous cultures, if you ask them where they live in their body, they tend to gesture to the region of the chest, not up here. So they're using what I call heart perception or heart cognition, and they're using the heart as an organ of perception, communication, an organ of thinking, and that seems to be really the root of it. It's what the ancient Athenians worked with, it's what many indigenous people work with, and the heart is actually capable of perceiving very discrete changes in meaning states of things. You literally can feel the medicine of a plant and understand what it's good for through that way. And it's not really a mushy, emotional, goopy thing I'm talking about here. It's very specific, as elegant as it's the brain and its function. It's just, as we begin to grow up, everybody's seen 4-year-old girls sitting under trees talking with flowers. That capacity in them is still active, still alive. But once we start school, they start telling us to not pay attention to that, and our brain becomes absurdly educated while our heart ability stays undeveloped. And later in life, when we try to reclaim that capacity, we are still 6 years old, so we're like, wow, it feels like this, and you start from the beginning, and you have to be kind of ignorant for a while, but you literally can feel the medicine of a plant. If you're walking through a forest and you're working, you start to sit and work with a plant, and how does it feel to you? And you have this feeling of peacefulness and calmness. That's all antidepressants are supposed to do. You've got a feeling of the medicine of the plant, and that is the beginning of the development. And medicine people or indigenous people would say, the knowledge of the plant came to me in a dream, or the plant told me, or creator told me. All of them said that, and it starts with this capacity for intimacy through the feeling sense.